Hey groovy peoples, tomorrow's my mom's birthday, April 27th, so happy birthday, Mom. About a year or so ago, I was reading on video selections from Fernando Pessoa's The Book of Disquiet, translated by Richard Zenith and published by Penguin Classics. People seemed to dig it, or at least it gave them something to think about, and it gave me a lot to think about, and I'm still working my way through the book a year later, one piece at a time, digesting it. So I thought I'd read it a little bit more tonight. Some things that have given me food for thought. Not necessarily saying I agree or endorse these positions, but they definitely are worth considering. Please welcome Mr. Fernando Pessoa. Text number 110. After I've slept many dreams, I go out to the street with eyes wide open, but still with the aura and assurance of my dreams. And I'm astonished by my automatism, which prevents others from really knowing me. For I go through daily life still holding the hand of my astral nursemaid. My steps are in perfect accord with the obscure designs of my sleeping mind. And I walk in the right direction. I don't stagger. I react well. I exist. But in the respites, when I don't have to watch where I'm going to avoid vehicles or oncoming pedestrians, when I don't have to speak to anyone or enter a door up ahead, then I launch once more, like a paper boat, onto the waters of sleep. And once more I return to the fading illusion that cuddles my hazy consciousness of the morning now emerging amid the sounds of the vegetable carts. And it is then, in the middle of life's bustle, that my dream becomes a marvelous film. I walk along an unreal downtown street, and the reality of its non-existent lives affectionately wraps my head in a white cloth of false memories. I'm a navigator, engaged in unknowing myself. I've overcome everything where I've never been. And this somnolence that allows me to walk bent forward in a march over the impossible feels like a fresh breeze. Everyone has his alcohol. To exist is alcohol enough for me. Drunk from feeling, I wander as I walk straight ahead. When it's time, I show up at the office like everyone else. When it's not time, I go to the river to gaze at the river like everyone else. I'm no different. And behind all this, O sky, my sky, I secretly constellate and have my infinity. 111. Every man of today, unless his moral stature and intellectual level are that of a pygmy or a churl, loves with romantic love when he loves. Romantic love is a rarefied product of century after century of Christian influence, and everything about its substance and development can be explained to the unenlightened by comparing it to a suit fashioned by the soul or the imagination, and used to clothe those whom the mind thinks it fits when they happen to come along. But every suit, since it isn't eternal, lasts as long as it lasts, and soon, under the fraying clothes of the ideal we've formed, the real body of the person we dressed it in shows through. Romantic love is thus a path to disillusion, unless this disillusion, accepted from the start, decides to vary the ideal constantly sewing new suits in the soul's workshops, so as to constantly renew the appearance of the person they clothe. 112. We never love anyone. What we love is the idea we have of someone. It's our own concept, our own selves that we love. This is true in the whole gamut of love. In sexual love, we seek our own pleasure via another body. In non-sexual love, we seek our own pleasure via our own idea. The masturbator may be abject, but in point of fact, he's the perfect logical expression of the lover. He's the only one who doesn't feign and doesn't fool himself. The relations between one soul and another, expressed through such uncertain and variable things as shared words and proffered gestures, are deceptively complex. The very act of meeting each other is a non-meeting. Two people say, "I love you," or mutually think it and feel it, and each has in mind a different idea, a different life, perhaps even a different color or fragrance in the abstract sum of impressions that constitute the soul's activity. Today, I'm lucid as if I didn't exist. My thinking is as naked as a skeleton, without the fleshly tatters of the illusion of expression. And these considerations that I forged and abandoned weren't born from anything, at least not from anything in the front rows of my consciousness. Perhaps it was the sales representative's disillusion with his girlfriend. Perhaps a sentence I read in one of the romantic tales that our newspapers reprint from the foreign press. Or perhaps just a vague nausea for which I can think of no physical cause. The scholiast who annotated Virgil was wrong. Understanding is what wearies most of all. To live is not to think. 113. 2 or 3 days like the beginning of love. The value of this for the aesthete is in the feelings it produces. To go further would be to enter the realm of jealousy, suffering, and anxiety. In this antechamber of emotion, there's all the sweetness of love, hints of pleasure, whiffs of passion, without any of its depth. If this means giving up the grandeur of tragic love, we must remember the tragedies for the aesthete are interesting to observe, but unpleasant to experience. The cultivation of life hinders that of the imagination. It is the aloof, uncommon man who rules. No doubt this theory would satisfy me if I could convince myself that it's not what it is, a complicated jabber to fill the ears of my intelligence, to make it almost forget that at heart I'm just timid, with no aptitude for life. (114) Aesthetics of Artificiality. Life hinders the expression of life. If I actually lived a great love, I would never be able to describe it. Not even I know if this I that I'm disclosing to you in these meandering pages actually exists or is but a fictitious aesthetic concept I've made of myself. Yes, that's right. I live aesthetically as someone else. I've sculpted my life like a statue made of matter that's foreign to my being. Having employed my self-awareness in such a purely artistic way, and having become so completely external to myself, I sometimes no longer recognize myself. Who am I behind this unreality? I don't know. I must be someone. And if I avoid living, acting, and feeling, then believe me, it's not. Then believe me, it's so as not to tamper with the contours of my invented personality. I want to be exactly what I wanted to be and am not. If I were to give in to life, I'd be destroyed. I want to be a work of art, at least in my soul, since I can't be one in my body. That's why I've sculpted myself in quiet isolation and have placed myself in a hothouse, cut off from fresh air and direct light, where the absurd flower of my artificiality can blossom in secluded beauty. Sometimes I muse about how wonderful it would be if I could string all my dreams together into one continuous life, a life consisting of entire days full of imaginary companions and created people, a false life which I could live and suffer and enjoy. Misfortune would sometimes strike me there, and there I would also experience great joys, and nothing about me would be real, but everything would have a sublime logic. It would all pulse to a rhythm of sensual falseness, taking place in a city built out of my soul and extending all the way to the platform next to an idle train, far away in the distance within me. And it would all be vivid and inevitable, as in the outer life, but with an aesthetics of the dying sun. (115) To organize our life in such a way that it becomes a mystery to others, that those who are closest to us will only be closer to not knowing us. That is how I've shaped my life, almost without thinking about it. But I did it with so much instinctive art that even to myself I've become a not entirely clear and definite individual. 116. To write is to forget. Literature is the most agreeable way of ignoring life. Music soothes, the visual arts exhilarate, and the performing arts, such as acting and dance, entertain. Literature, however, retreats from life by turning it into a slumber. The other arts make no such retreat, some because they use visual and hence vital formulas, others because they live from human life itself. This isn't the case with literature. Literature stimulates life. A novel is a story of what never was, and a play is a novel without narration. A poem is the expression of ideas or feelings in a language no one uses, because no one talks in verse. The word of the Lord, that's enough of that.